Hey guys, today I'm going to teach you to use a very important tool that is completely free, that you already have on your computer, and yet you may not even know about it, or you may just be hesitant to use it because you think it's only for professional developers, when really it is quite simple to use. And I'm talking about this sidebar here, which is called Chrome DevTools, or the Chrome Inspector. And it allows you to look at the code of your website and see how your website is actually built, as well as all the information that you need about the various colors, fonts, the spacing between elements. It can allow you to spontaneously make edits without actually editing your website, but just editing here in your browser to see how something might look. And you can even apply CSS styles to those elements just temporarily here in the browser, again, to see how something might look. You can also preview things on mobile and on different devices. And there are a whole bunch of uses for Chrome DevTools. I know that you might be hesitant to use this because it's for professionals, but actually the basic features of it that you would benefit the most from are very easy. And if you've watched my other videos, you followed my tutorials, then you definitely have enough skill to use this as well. So let's get into it. By the way, if you're using a different browser like Firefox or Safari, they all have their own version of DevTools as well, but Chrome is widely considered the best one, the professional standard tool. But the concepts in this tutorial will apply to the other browsers as well. You can use those if you prefer. Okay, let's start from the absolute basics. To open the tool, simply right-click anywhere on your page and click Inspect. That opens up the Chrome Inspector. You can reposition it at the bottom here. I think this is how it opens up by default, but I prefer it as a sidebar. So click on these three dots here and put it to the side. The tool that you might most commonly want to use here is, I think it's called Target Mode. It's this little arrow here, and when you activate it, now when you hover over the different parts of your page, you'll see that they're highlighted. This tool is already very useful because let's hover over this title, for example. You can see that it's a H1 element. It's showing you the width and the height, the color of the text, the font size, and the font family. So it's already giving you a lot of information, and it's replacing those Chrome extensions you might have used to see the font or the font size, like Font Ninja. Really, that's already built into your browser. Now, to exit this hover mode, all you need to do is click on any element here, and that element will be selected in the sidebar, but your mouse here is back to normal. Okay, now the first thing you might want to try is simply editing some text. So all you do is, once you've selected the element, double click on the text itself, and you can change it to whatever you want. Just press enter, and it'll update that on the website. And of course, guys, this is only local, right? It's only on your computer. Nobody else is going to see that. And as soon as you refresh, it's going to go back to normal. Now, this is really useful because sometimes a client will actually ask me, I wonder how this would look. For example, I wonder if we can fit easy returns and exchanges, if that would look nice on 2 lines. And then they wait for me to do that for them, like the next day or something, but they could actually just, from scratch, inspect, double click here, and then write easy returns and exchanges, right? Enter. And then they would see exactly how that would look. And that's actually what I do. And then I screenshot this and send it to them, and they're like, okay, yes, let's please do it. But it's very quick and easy to do right here. And it doesn't even have to be your own website, right? So this is sometimes just a fun party trick. For example, you can make the homepage of apple.com say something like, subscribe to Ed Codes, enter. Okay, so that was the HTML panel, and it's fairly easy to find the text in here and to modify it. Now let's take a look at the CSS panel, which is below. This is a little bit more complicated. You might need to understand a little bit of CSS, but let's take a common example, which is experimenting with the font size. This is particularly useful if you're a designer, maybe. You want to see exactly what this would look like with a larger font before you actually go and do that using the Shopify admin. So here you might see some things that are not very clear. It's using CSS variables, which you should probably ignore. First way to see the font size is, of course, with that target mode button. You can see that it's 40 pixels. But another way, is ignore all of this because these are the styles that are written in the theme. There could be many of them, they could be overwriting each other. What you want to click on is the computed styles, which is the end result, the real style that it is actually now being applied. And so here we can see the font size is 40 pixels. And you can filter this as well. If you can't find what you're looking for, just type something like font and you'll see all the font related ones. So yeah, the computed tab, very useful for checking the actual styles that are applied to the currently selected element. Now go back to this tab though, and here under element.style, you can write a new style. So this is very basic CSS. You already know font size, and then we can write some pixel value. So font size, and then I'm going to write, instead of 40, let's make it 50 pixels. And that's how it would look at 50. Let's highlight this by shift and arrow. And now I can, using my arrows, just nudge that up and down until it's at something that I'm happy with the size of. I'll close this for now, see what it looks like, open it up again by clicking inspect. All my changes are still there because I haven't refreshed yet. So as soon as I refresh, that's going away. However, you might want to toggle a little bit to see the before after. So just click this checkbox here to disable the style and enable it again. So you're comparing the before after, and you can do the same thing for any of these styles really. Okay, and finally let's go back to the HTML panel for a bit, because I want to show you that you can delete something entirely if you want to see what the page would look like without that element, and it won't even take up space. Okay, so the other elements will shift upwards when I delete this vendor. So simply select that and hit backspace. You see, if I want to delete the product title for whatever reason, I can do that. Everything else will shift upwards to fill that space. And this is actually really useful when you want to take a screenshot of a website for some reason, but there's all these like pop-ups and things hanging around on the page and it's ruining the look of it, right? And you just want to get rid of that temporarily. So let's inspect this and we can just delete that. This is that other one. Let's delete that. And like this little Shopify bar at the bottom, yeah, they have a hide bar button, but if they didn't, then we can just delete that also. And now we can take a nice clean screenshot. Just don't refresh, because when you refresh, it's all going to come back. So we covered how to inspect and edit HTML and CSS using these two panels here and the computed tab here especially. Now, the next tool that I use quite often is this device toolbar, which you can toggle on by clicking on this devices icon. And this opens up your website in this little responsive window that you can drag around and see what it looks like at different sizes. Right up here, it has some of the most common sizes. So tablet, for example, large mobiles, 425 pixels, medium, small mobiles at 320, which is quite rare nowadays. And you can also see what your website would look like on real devices. So click here and you'll see some of the most common devices. For example, there's always going to be the latest iPhones here. So the 14 Pro Max, 430 pixels, some of the latest Androids, some common tablets as well, the iPad Pro. If you want to see landscape mode, you can toggle that using this button here, but you would rarely do that, to be honest. And most of the time I just leave this on responsive mode. The responsive mode is usually a very easy way to discover your website's breakpoints. What are breakpoints? It's that point at which your layout switches from the mobile to the desktop versions of your site. I shouldn't say versions, it's the same site, but different CSS is applied at that certain pixel width. And to find it, all you need to do is really just carefully move it across and keep your eye on the pixels here. And when I get close enough, I can see that if I just go down one, with my arrows, then I can see that that breakpoint is 750 pixels on this specific theme, which is Dawn, right? So I know that if I want to write some CSS that will affect only mobile, then I need to write a media query that targets everything at 750 pixels and under, okay? I'm going to demonstrate that for you right now with a practical example, and we're going to be using some of the skills that I've talked about throughout this video. Okay, I think I've just discovered the perfect mini project to show you some of these skills and some basic CSS. So what we're looking at here is a tab section that wasn't originally part of Dawn. This is a section that I've built, and it's actually one of the sections available on my Gumroad store. So if you need a tab section, go and check that out at shop.ed.codes. But basically, because it wasn't originally part of Dawn, I've noticed that it has a small issue that I will fix. But right now I'm going to imagine I'm a store owner. The problem is that on mobile, there's too much spacing, okay? There's too much spacing around this section. I'm thinking, why is there such a wide space here? And also I'm thinking, there is a narrower padding on the sides here in the rest of my theme, and yet there's quite a large padding on the sides here. So here's what I would do as a store owner to fix this issue. First of all, I want to understand the cause of this spacing. So I'll select this targeted mode here and I'll hover over that space. And what I can see is that it's the section itself. It's the outermost container of the section. If I look at the HTML, it's called ed tab section. And if I switch to the computed, I can see that it's got 40 pixels padding all around. Now that seems like too much, and I'm guessing that the reason is because that's the same padding as on desktop. So let's take a look at desktop and we'll see that yes, in fact, this stupid developer, whoever built this, that was me, has not adjusted the padding for mobile, okay? And we can actually scroll down here in the styles and we see ed tab section, padding 40 pixels. So let's go back to mobile and we're thinking, okay, on mobile, I think that shouldn't be 40 pixels all around. It should be something more like 20. So here, I'm just going to edit the CSS to see what that might look like. Type 20 pixels, and that's looking a lot better. You could also write this here under element.style because that's going to overwrite whatever is here. So let's put this back to 40. Here we'll write padding 20 pixels. That's what I want. And I'm thinking it actually doesn't need any top padding at all. So why don't we do padding dash top 0, okay? So to reduce that space even more. And that's what I want it to look like on mobile. And what I've just done by experimenting in the CSS panel here is I already know what CSS I want to apply. I want to apply these 2 lines of CSS, except I want to apply them on mobile only. So now let's get to the good part and actually get this done. Now I'm in my theme customizer. I'm scrolling down to this tabbed content section, and like most modern Shopify sections, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, it has this custom CSS field where I need a selector and then I can write my rule. The selector is how you target HTML elements in CSS. So my selector is going to be ed tab section. I'm targeting that entire section. If I wanted to change something inside of that section, I would be targeting something different, right? But in our case right now, targeting that entire section. So I'm just going to copy this class here and paste that in here. Now to indicate that it's a class in CSS, we use a dot. So this is a class called ed tab section, and open up these curly braces, and now we can write our rule. We've already written those rules here, so I'm just going to copy both of these and paste them here. And that should already solve our problem on mobile. Great. However, what we've done here is also affecting desktop. We don't want such small paddings on desktop. It's too close, and it's too close to the sides here. So what we need to use is a media query. A media query is quite simple. It goes around our entire CSS declaration. So I'm just going to enter to write a line above it. And I'm going to write at media, then parentheses, max width. And then if you watch the previous section where we saw what our breakpoint was, on Dawn the breakpoint is 750 pixels. That's the point at which it switches over from mobile to desktop. So because we're targeting mobile only, we want max width 750 pixels. And then I'll just open up double curly braces as usual. Our CSS has to go inside of that media query. And guys, this editor here is terrible. It's jumping around and trying to do some formatting. So I recommend instead using codepen.io. This is a free code editor playground. And just write your code here in peace and quiet, and then just paste that into Shopify, okay? So here's how we want that to look. We have our media query around our CSS. And this is saying that this CSS applies only at a maximum width of 750 pixels. So in other words, 750 pixels and below, we're applying this CSS. Anything above that is not going to be affected. So copy this, paste it in here, and we should see that desktop goes back to normal, right? Desktop again has these larger paddings, but mobile is now fixed with smaller paddings around it. So we've used the responsive mode in here, we've used the HTML panel, we've looked at the computed styles, these styles, written our CSS here, and then written a media query to actually implement the code. And that's pretty good. If you've followed along in some way and you understand everything so far, you should be proud of yourself because you've mastered some web development skills that you can use for the rest of your life, really. If you found this video interesting, especially the last part, then you might want to check out my Beginner's Guide to Shopify Coding ebook. It's an online book that explains the basics of HTML, CSS, Liquid, and specifically in the context of Shopify. So again, you'll find that on shop.ed.codes, and I'll put the link in the description. If you guys have any questions, then let me know in the comments. Good luck, and I'll see you next time.